Mike McCarthy is out as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. A process should have taken 24 hours, took over a week, but it is now finally time for an updated list of head coach candidates. I've got a long list of names because I really want to do a long and real coaching search for the Dallas Cowboys. Before we get to it, was dumping Mike McCarthy the right decision? I hated the process. I hated everything about it. But I think the decision was right. Doesn't mean the next coach is going to be the right hire, but moving on from McCarthy, I do think was the correct decision. Let me know in the comments section of today's show, Y for yes, N for no. I want to acknowledge stuff that was a big conversation before they fired Mike. The idea there's a limited pool, I think is a flat-out lie. You can find a good head coach. You just have to try. You have to do a real coaching search. If the Cowboys' plan is, hey, we're only going to interview people that we know or that were former head coaches, yeah, the pool's limited because you yourself are cutting out half the options, if not 70% of the options. I think the Dallas Cowboys need real change. I don't want to keep doing this like we're shuffling out bits and pieces, keeping elements of the previous staff. You got to take a risk here. There's a real chance this ends up being worse. There's a lot of NFL teams out there that would kill for 12-5 in 3 straight seasons. That's good results. That's top-end ledger results. Now, the playoff success was never there for Mike McCarthy. Didn't materialize the way they wanted it to. That's fine. But you need to go do a real coaching search. The Patriots' job has already been filled. Mike Vrabel's off the board. That leaves 6 jobs. The Bears and Saints seem to have interest in Mike McCarthy. The Jags, Raiders, and Jets are all available for open jobs. And you've missed your window to initially interview several candidates who we will discuss on today's show. But the job's open. You need to go get it. You need to start your search and work with some urgency here because you dragged your feet and you're going to pay the price on some of that. Now, we'll get to a very long list of candidates that I have today. Who do you want as the next Cowboys head coach? Keep it realistic, unrealistic. Trades aren't going to happen. But let me know who you want as the next Cowboys head coach for 2025 and beyond. Let's begin with my dream option. That is Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. I think there'll be a lot of comments, that pin comment of Ben Johnson here. Young, innovative, offensive mind, checks off a lot of the boxes you want. You can't interview him anymore. You have to wait to interview Ben Johnson. Also, Aaron Glenn, Chiefs candidates as well. NFL changed the rules. You can now talk to them once their seasons are over. They missed the window here. They're not options. They're in the playoffs. The NFL didn't like how many coaches were getting interviews in the middle of the playoff run. Now you have to wait for Ben Johnson as a candidate. He might have already picked the job he wants. You never got to talk to him. You screwed up. Let's talk fired head coaches then, which is, I think, a candidate pool the Cowboys love to pull from. Pete Carroll stands out to me. Even we mentioned it before, the Bears and Raiders requested to interview him. I think he wants back in coaching. He's old, but of this list of guys we're going to go through here, he is one of the better ones. And there are buts with every single candidate we will mention. Robert Saleh getting interviews this cycle. I would love him as my defensive coordinator for hiring an offensive mind. I don't know if he's going to get that. He might just go back to San Francisco. But DC, I've got interest there. Brian Flores should get interviews. I want to figure out, he's a great defensive mind. I love his schematics. I want to figure out what went wrong on offense. How is he going to change what was a disaster in Miami there? Can't answer those questions. I don't want it. Steve Spagnuolo. Again, you got to wait for this one too because they were on bye. Interview window closed. Now you got to wait. Great defensive mind. Might just be Wade Phillips 2.0, though. Cliff Kingsbury. Jerry seems to like him. He's a good offensive mind. Has done a good job. He sucked at Texas Tech, and he was mediocre at best in Arizona. I don't know how that guy gets a third head coaching job. I don't want to hire Cliff Kingsbury. I would be pretty disappointed by that one. Vance Joseph, another former NFL head coach that is going to get some interviews. Seems uninspiring. I'd rather get Brian Flores. Arthur Smith is interviewing with the Jets, among other teams. And again, I don't love that schematics. I think the running game matters. I think that's kind of, full circling its way back to defense to running game mattering more. But he also, again, wasn't good in Atlanta. Did what he did with the Falcons really benefit things? Or the Steelers really change things? I would bet Ron Rivera gets interviewed. Can interview him whenever. Cowboys like him. They know him. I think it'd be a really bad hire. Marvin Lewis, the Raiders assistant head coach. It just like, you interviewed him last time. I would hate this one too. And I'll mention Doug Peterson here too. There's even other names beyond this fired head coaches list. You can get to like Matt Nagy, who I would also hate. Peterson failed twice. I don't want to go with the only retread options here. Now, Mike Zimmer's status is unclear, by the way. Fits the former head coach mold, fits the internal option. He might not want to coach, period. But I'll mention him. I'll mention Al Harris, who I like a lot. I think he did a good job position coach-wise. He's not ready to be a head coach. Probably not ready to be a DC necessarily either. The wild card name, then, is John Gruden. Now, Jerry Jones had been asked about this previously. He declined to comment about who he called his friend, Gruden. Now, there's been reports that Gruden was going to draw interest. The Saints were mentioned. That seemingly hasn't really materialized at this point. He didn't have the best success with the Raiders. It was getting better. He hasn't won a playoff game since 2002. And if that's the bar we're aiming for, Gruden has not met that bar in a long time. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. Game Time's got a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to only show you the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets to find the best value. It is curation designed to make it easier to find the better value on not just sports like Stars and Mavs game or whatever local sporting event you can go to. I know it's America's team, not just Dallas. But also concerts and comedy, theater, and everything else in between. The all-in pricing feature shows your total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The Game Time guarantee is this. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, ChatSports, for $20 off your first purchase. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Now, if you had to pick a quote-unquote betting favorite before the interviews even begin, I think Kellen Moore should be pretty high on that list, which might not be a good thing. He's got obvious ties to Dallas. I do think there has to be some relationship mending for the way it ended, where the Cowboys picked McCarthy over Kellen Moore last time. The offense didn't get better without Kellen Moore. I also question if this is real change, or is this just the appearance of change, the illusion of change. It didn't work the way we wanted it to last time. Are we sure it's going to work this time around? I wouldn't be surprised if Kellen gets an interview, if he's a top candidate, but I think there are some other young offensive minds that I have as much, if not more, interest in. First up is Joe Brady, the Bills' offensive coordinator. I think he's done a good job in Buffalo. The offense was better once he took over. I thought he did a good job at LSU. Helped when he got freakazoids on both sides. But the run game was a lot better in Buffalo this year. A hell of a lot better. I think Brady's going to impress people. That's why he got the LSU job. He blew people away with the interview process with Coach O. I want to interview him. I think if you don't, you're not being serious. I think Liam Cohen is worth interviewing. That is the Bucs offensive coordinator. He is the one guy that made Will Levis look good. The one guy. Bucs were good on offense here. The defense had its issues, frankly, and they couldn't get off the field against the Commanders. But I want to interview him. Maybe some of these young guys aren't ready for it, but I do want to interview them. Bobby Slowick. I'm not as high on Bobby Slowick. I don't love the run game stuff. I think Texans have been really inconsistent on offense this year. Some Texans fans asked Jeremy Chuggs how he feels about Slowick. But he's going to get interviews probably. I think Todd Monken is a really good name to interview. Has head coach experience at Southern Miss. Was a 1-win program to 9 wins at Southern Miss. Not an easy spot to win. Ravens, everywhere he's gone outside of the disastrous Browns team, which was not his fault. That was Freddie Kitchens' fault. They've had success on offense. I want to get him in for an interview. Adam Stenavich, the Packers OC, I think can help you with your ground game stuff. Now, he's a non-play calling OC, so I don't love that one as much. But again, there's LaFleur trees, which connect back to the McVay tree, which I like. Drew Petzing got a Bears interview. I don't think he's ready to be a head coach, but he's a young offensive mind that you can consider. I'll even throw in Clint Kubiak almost as if you hire a defensive mind, let's bring him in for an interview. Probably not for the head coach, but elsewhere, sure. Wes Phillips is an under-the-radar name. The Vikings offensive coordinator, son of Wade. Remember, you've got the Jerry apologizing for the way he treated Wade. Could that have been a ploy to maybe get back on the good terms with the Phillips family? Wes is going to should draw interest. His quarterback's coach got an interview. And I always get, red flags always get raised for me when the number 2, in this case Wes Phillips, doesn't get requests initially, but the number 3 does. It's always weird to me. Frank Smith had some interviews and mentioned in names. It's the Dolphins OC. I don't love that one. I kind of went to tenure on purpose to show it's not the deepest crop of offensive minds. But there are 6 jobs open. You can get one of them if you want to. This is very important. What is your confidence level in the Dallas Cowboys making the right hire? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Be honest with me in the comments. Let's go to defensive minds. I think Aaron Glenn should be at the top of a lot of interview lists. I love what he's done. He has done creative things, maximizing a team that isn't always as talented on that side of the ball. I'd be surprised if Glenn didn't get to be a head coach this cycle. That might be the Saints, might be the Jets, but he's got ties to Dallas as well. He played for Dallas many, many years ago. Is, again, worth mentioning. Can't interview him right now. Lions season must end because you missed your initial window because you dragged your feet on the Mike McCarthy thing. Jesse Minter, the Chargers DC, done a good job. He's not ready yet, but I want to mention him. Ejiro Evero gets linked to all these jobs and didn't love the job he did. Anthony Weaver has had interviews. The Dolphins defensive coordinator. I loved what I saw from Denard Wilson for the first 12 or 13 games. It all kind of fell apart. I don't have a deep defensive minds list. A lot of them are former coaches already because that's how it normally goes. But Aaron Glenn very much stands out to me. Let's talk college coaches here. Marcus Freeman. Everyone likes him. Nobody excited him. That happens. Everyone mentions Lincoln Riley at some point. His star has kind of fallen a lot. I don't like what I've seen so far. Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning are viewed as good coaches. I think in general, a lot of these top college jobs, it's a better job than the Cowboys job. Steve Sarkisian has been pure speculation linked to the Dallas Cowboys. He'd take a pay cut to come to Dallas. He'd be making about $10 million a year, $9 million a year in Texas. Don't really know if that's a path that they want. I also wonder if Steve Sarkisian is a really good offensive play caller and not quite a good enough head coach. Matt Campbell falls into like the Freeman bucket, but I don't know if that's a perfect one. Deion Sanders is going to be linked to the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to happen. It happened before they even fired Mike. He's open to coaching if he gets to coach his kid. You're not going to get Shooter Sanders. I don't really see how Deion ends up in Dallas. I wouldn't be shocked if an interview happened, but I don't see how hiring Deion with what he is good at fits with what the Cowboys need and don't have already. Now, we will have updates for you on the Cowboys head coaching search. News, rumors, interviews, we should get those trickling in here. Hit that sub button if you haven't already, youtube.com/CowboysTV. One more name I want to mention. I would not be surprised. In fact, I would bet yes if I could, that Jason Witten gets an interview for the Cowboys head coaching job. Jerry loves him. I did the clip of, Jerry's gonna view Dan Campbell as his own Dan Campbell as Witten's role, and then Jerry said that for real. I don't want a head coach who has never coached in anything more than low-level high school football. I don't want those Tony Romos, the Jimmy Johnsons from the 90s. Those are bad ideas. Let's do a real search. Let's interview serious candidates, not ridiculous ones.